بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وبارك على الأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد والحمد لله. In our previous sittings we were discussing the affair of the talib al-ilm, the student of knowledge, and the mannerisms that he must have with himself, within his own self. And this was the matter where the student of knowledge must adhere to particular mannerisms in order to prepare himself and have his heart in the condition that is accepting of knowledge. Alhamdulillah, previously we mentioned some of the points of that in relation to the talib al-ilm and the conditions that he should have upon himself. The next affair that we should wish to discuss with yourselves, inshallah, is the adab, the manners of the talib al-ilm with his sheikh, with his teacher. And what is required from him in relation to his mannerisms and his respect that he has with that teacher. And so, from the points that I mentioned, the first of them, mentioned here by Ibn Jama'ah, is أنه ينبغي لطالب العلم أن يقدم النظر ويستخير الله في من يأخذ العلم عنه. And so, the student of knowledge, he must give precedence to whom and look to whom he's taking his knowledge from. And pray istikhara. I seek counsel with his Lord, seek counsel with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the individual that he's taking his knowledge from. So this is one of the mannerisms. Before the person even sits with the shaykh, he must have a degree of taharri, meaning caution, and pondering who his shaykh is and whether he should seek knowledge from them. You contrast that now with today, for example, where an individual merely seeks their knowledge from YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. And then ask yourselves honestly, how many people pray istikhara before they press play on that video? Or when they watch the video, another suggestion comes of another teacher, whoever they may be, and the person really ponders, do I really want to listen to this lecture? Should I pray istikhara first? Should I seek counsel first? Rather, they just press play. Likewise, the same with other social media mediums, where a person may find a tweet, may like the sound of the contents of the tweet, and then pass it on to others, without knowing who they're taking that affair from. This is the affair of ilm, deen, the religion. And so there has to be caution. And a person has to give their due diligence in that affair. And so, this is what is regarded as being husn akhlaq wa adab, i.e. the affair of good mannerisms and characteristics. Na'am. And so he looks for this as well within his teacher, good mannerisms, good characteristics. For indeed, these characteristics, كُمِّلَتْ أَحْلِيَةُ, are a means of perfection and completion of this teacher's qualification. A person can be qualified to teach in terms of They have knowledge. They sought knowledge. However, they have sayyid adab, of bad mannerisms. Or mannerisms that are not befitting of teachers, or mannerisms that are not befitting of someone that is carrying the ilm of deen and the sharia. And so, when we say qualified, and this affair of qualification is ongoing. And this affair of qualification is inclusive of the mannerisms. Naam. And so no doubt, the talib al-ilm doesn't seek, as the Shaykh, as Ibn Jama'ah mentions, وَلَا يَرْغَبَ الطَّالِبْ فِي زِيَادَةِ الْعِلْمِ مَعَ نَقْصٍ فِي الْوَرَعِ. So the talib, does not want, or desire to increase his knowledge, but as the trade-off, they have a decrease in their wara'. They have a decrease in their adhering and abstinence from affairs that they find doubtful, for example. And generally a decrease in their deen. Or adam khuluq al-jameel. So some of the Salaf had mentioned, and this is a statement that is well known, that هذا علم الدين فانظروا عما تأخذون دينكم. That this knowledge is the religion. And knowledge itself is the religion. So look to whom you take your religion from. This statement is one which is well known and narrated mainly from Ibn Sirin, Muhammad ibn Sirin. However, there are others than him that have, from the Salaf of Salih, that have narrated the same. And generally as well, from what is mentioned by Ahlul Ilm, that this statement is derived from the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he mentions Amar ala dini khalili, that an individual is upon the religion of his companion. So look to whom you take as your companion. So just as we look at who our companions are, because we want to have the best companions. We want to have the companions that are people of deen. We want to have the companions that are people of sunnah. Just as we look for those in our companionship, we have to have the same bahth, the same research when we're looking at who we're taking our knowledge from as well. And, as mentioned by Ibn Jama'ah, that there's a process. The person does not only just take the knowledge, but he seeks counsel in this affair as well. He seeks nasiha. He seeks counsel with Allah Ta'ala. Now before merely taking the knowledge. And so, this is the affair that we understand from it. And likewise, the person strives to find the shaykh that has the knowledge that will benefit him. So for example, this is the shaykh that's muttali', as an individual that has read many different books and is well acquainted with the ulum of the sharia. He's well acquainted with the sciences and the different forms of knowledge of the deen and the sharia. And so, this is the affair, no doubt, where an individual gives importance with sitting with the shaykh. Na'am. And some of the Salaf, they would mention, من أعظم بلية تمشيخ نعم تمشيخ عفوا من أعظم بلية تمشيخ الصحيفية. And from the greatest forms of trials and evils that can occur, I refer to evils for the talib al-ilm, is that a person takes their books as their mashayikh. They take their books as their teachers. They don't give importance to actually sitting in the lessons of the gatherings of knowledge itself. This is something to contemplate. Do not be from the individual who you find. After some years, they may have ijtihad with them, they may strive and study to learn the Arabic language, and no doubt this is something that everyone should strive to do. Everyone should strive to learn the Arabic language. So no doubt, the Book of Allah in the Quran, the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah was revealed in Arabic. So we should strive to learn the Arabic language. no doubt. However, do not be from those individuals that after these years of ijtihad, after these years of striving in the Arabic language, you say that I can do this myself now. I understand Arabic, so I'm just going to read the books myself. I don't need to go to the lectures anymore. I don't need to go to the lessons in the Masjid anymore. I'll just read the books in Arabic myself. The person must understand from this adab, from the adab of the talib ilm, these mannerisms that the student of knowledge must have, is that he reads these books with someone. So there's a degree of understanding what you're reading and correction of any misunderstandings that you have. And that is what is mentioned here by the Salaf, is that it's a baliyah, it's a trial. Now, it's a great harm when a person only relies upon the books. No doubt be from those individuals that read from the books. No doubt be from those individuals that learn the Arabic language, but do not suffice with this alone. Rather, you have to sit in the gatherings of knowledge as well. Now, and the second affair is أن ينقاد لشيخه في أموره. نعم. And so, the second is that the person seeks to follow his sheikh and take his sheikh as an example in the affairs. And that the dealing that the student has with his sheikh, with his teacher, is like the marid ma'a tabib. The dealing that he has is like the patient with the doctor. And so, he no doubt is going to be listening to the doctor and listening to the opinion of the doctor. So when you're a patient, the doctor is going to say, may describe your ailment to you. Now, based upon these symptoms, it seems you may have this illness. For example, listen to me carefully. You need to do this, and this action. No doubt you listen to him carefully because you want to get better. Now, it's the same affair. The student with his sheikh is teaching him and informing him of affairs of his deen and the amor of the sunnah and the amor of tawheed. And so he listens to him. He listens to what he has to say. And so it's a must that the person has a degree of tawadu in this affair. They are humble. So they don't go into the lessons with the sheikh believing that I know it all already. What more can he tell me? Rather, he goes into these lessons with the hope that any small benefit I can take, I'm going to try and take that, implement that, and use it for myself, to benefit myself and in my deen. And Zayd ibn Thabit, Al-Ansari mentions, هكذا أمرنا أن نفعل بالعلمائنا. Zayd ibn Thabit, he mentions, and this is how we were commanded to be with our ulama. Zayd ibn Thabit, radiallahu anhu. And you have these statements of Ahlul Ilm in relation to that. Naam. Likewise, Allah Ta'ala mentions the statement of Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-Kahf, where Allah Ta'ala mentions, إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِي صَبْرًا. And so Musa mentions, indeed, you will not be able to have with me this affair of patience. I.e. his, or Musa alayhi salam's, tawadu' in relation to learning from Khidr. I.e. his intent when hearing that there was a man that had possessed this knowledge, he travelled to him. Naam, he travelled to him. And Musa alayhi salam is a prophet. Naam, a-Rasul, min Rusulillah. A messenger from amongst the messengers of Allah Ta'ala. And thus, when hearing about this individual, travelled to him. Tawadu'an. He travelled to him with humility, with this affair. And this is, as Ahlul Ilm mentioned as well, this kiss of Musa alayhi salam, the story of Musa alayhi salam. This is the asl of a rihla fi talab al-ilm. This is the beginning and the origins of the person travelling to seek knowledge. No doubt this is something that we have to this day. Now, in this day and age, brothers may travel to different countries, to maybe universities, to seek knowledge, and sit with the ulama of this ummah in different lands. And likewise, amongst the salaf of this ummah and the a'imma of hadith, they would travel to the different amsar, to different lands, sometimes maybe seeking to listen to one hadith. And on occasion, they may travel to listen to a hadith that they already know. Naam, as mentioned, the example of Ayub al-Sakhtiyani, that he travelled across the lands to listen to a hadith that he already knew, seeking to shorten the isnad, seeking al-uluf al-isnad, yani that he heard the narration from another person, that was from another person. He wanted to hear it from the one that was even closer to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so he travelled for this cause. So this is the affair of rihla, travelling for talab al-ilm. There's ongoing. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, ongoing to this day. And those that mentioned that it began with the affair of Musa alayhi salam. Now, the third affair is that he looks and he has a view of his shaykh where he has raised him. So he has a high opinion of his shaykh. And this is the affair that will aid him the most in order to benefit from him. And this is from the mannerisms that a person has with the shaykh. And this is from the means of him having ihtiram for his shaykh. He has a degree of respect for his shaykh. And that when he speaks to him, he speaks with him, when he addresses him in a manner which is befitting of a teacher. And this person is the one that is teaching you your deen. And so, Khatib al-Baghdadi, he mentions that the talib al-ilm will state أيها العالم أو عالم when they're addressing the shaykh, أو أيها الحافظ or حافظ and the likes of that. Or what do you say about this affair? What do you say about kada, about this? وَمَا رَأْيكُمْ, and what is your opinion of this? And speech that is comparable to that. And this is how a person addresses. Na'am, Shaykh. Allah Ta'ala knows best in the building. I will conclude here and continue, inshallah, after the salah with some of the points. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم وصلى الله وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وبارك على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. نعم. So thereafter we was discussing some of the mannerisms that students should have with his sheikh. I mentioned 3 of them, and then the 4th is that the student أن يعرف له حقه ولا ينسى له فضله. So he gives his sheikh his due right, and he does not forget the virtue that his teacher has. And so from this, what we understand from this is that our individual, he gives this his presence, being in the presence of his teacher, is due right. And being in the presence of his teacher is not like being in the presence of anyone else. Again, this is understood. This is an individual that is teaching you your religion. This is an individual that is giving you the tools, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to act and perform the actions that will bring about the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus, bi'idhnillah, it means you enter Jannah. So this individual is not like any other. And so, this gathering has to be given its due right. Likewise, he rejects any form of ghiba. He rejects the affair of backbiting for his teacher. And not only that, it's something that angers him. I.e. the ghiba of his shaykh. And if he's not able to do so, if he's not able to reject and refute the backbiting of his shaykh, then he leaves the gathering. Again, we're looking at these mannerisms. They are seen in the light of who this individual is and what they are giving them from the tools that may benefit them in this dunya, in this life, and the akhirah, the next. And so if in the gathering he hears of the ghiba, then he should refute that ghiba, that backbiting. And if he's not able to do so, then he leaves the gathering altogether. And what do we know in terms of the definition of ghiba, backbiting? What's its definition? Now, I am mentioning that about your brother which he dislikes. Now I mentioned that in his absence about your brother which you dislike. And the dhabit as well, the specific mention of the affair of ghiba, is that it's something that may be, or something that is true about them. Right, so it's truthful speech. However, this speech is something that they would dislike to be mentioned. So it goes without saying that if this speech is batil and it's false and it's kadhib, but it's lying, then this is even more so. This is even greater. Likewise, as mentioned along with this, as you refute those that backbite your sheikh and in those gatherings. Likewise as well, is that it's a must that the student, he makes dua for him. He makes dua for his sheikh. throughout his life. And that he has concern for his offspring and his offspring, his children and his children's children after his death. And a person adheres to his mannerisms in the general sense. That's the fourth. The fifth is أن يصبر على جفوة تصدر من شيخه أو سوء خلق. That the student, he must have sabr upon any bad mannerisms or any poor dealings that the shaykh may have with him. Or that the shaykh, for example, he may have harshness with him. The student is patient with that. The student is patient with that affair. And he's not an individual that merely becomes angry with his shaykh or retaliates. Again, because that which the shaykh is giving him, the tools that he's given him, is greater than anything that he has from his feelings. Anything that he has from his feelings, or any harshness that he may felt from his shaykh, it pales in comparison to that knowledge that has been given to them. And so, no doubt, a person must be aware that the shaykh is an individual min al-insan. He's from Bani Adam. He's from the children of Adam. He's a person. And all of us, as Bani Adam, we may fall into error. And we fall into error how, in terms of our dealings with one another, or other than that. And so this should not be a means of blocking him off from sitting with that shaykh and adhering to the gatherings of the shaykh, or from taking from his good aqidah, his good creed. Naam. And likewise, he tries to make excuses for his shaykh if he sees some that which appears to be bad mannerisms, and tries to give the best opinion of that. So he tries to look at it in the best way possible. And this begins as well with the student. If he sees some harshness from his shaykh, he begins by seeking to pardon him, pardoning that harshness from him. And seeking forgiveness. And this is what we understand from that. And so some of the Salaf, they mention من لم يصبر على ظل تعليم بقي عمره في عماية الجاهلية ومن صبر عليه آل عمره إلى إز الدنيا والآخرة. And the Salaf, they mentioned that whoever does not remain patient and لم يصبر upon the affair of humility in learning, then he remains for the rest of his life in the state of ignorance. However, the one that is patient with that, then he attains in his affair, in his life, the affair of honor and being raised in honor in the dunya and the akhirah. And this is the one that is patient in talab al-ilm. And this affair of seeking knowledge requires patience. It requires patience in attaining the knowledge itself. And the knowledge might not come to you all at once. You have to be patient. Seeking that knowledge bit by bit by bit. Taking whatever you can. Likewise, it may require patience with your zumala, with your fellow student. It may not be a case that you and your fellow students have the same personalities. And so you clash, may clash. Likewise, that which occurs amongst students may be affairs of hasad and the like of that, jealousy amongst students, which the students must cleanse their hearts of and remove from their hearts. Again, the person remaining patient upon that affair. And as we're discussing here, the student may need to remain patient with his shaykh. Patient with his shaykh in reference to the harshness that may emanate from him. This is the case. This may be the case. That the shaykh may deal with his student in a way that may be seen as harsh. But again, whatever feelings you have in relation to that pales in comparison to that which you attain from that. And so this is why you have this statement, that the one that remains humble in that affair, he doesn't let the ego get the better of him. Because no doubt, this is an affair of the ego. If someone feels that the shaykh was harsh to me, harsh with me, he treated me wrong, I can't have it, as people say, I'm not gonna listen to that. Then what decreases is the humility. And what increases is the affair of the ego. And then, this is the affair that's being discussed here. However, the one that remains upon this affair of humility, what comes with it is the izzah, is the honor, by way of that knowledge that you will attain. The knowledge you will attain, and that will bring about honor in this life and the next. But no doubt when it comes to the affair of a person's ego, they are seeking what? They are seeking honor. They are seeking honor in a manner which is غير مشروع for the most part. In a manner which is not legislated. However, when a person remains humble and they continue to seek knowledge, this is the means of them increasing in that affair of knowledge. But the one that is overcome by his feelings and his ego and the rest of that, then he remains in a state of ignorance. So this is the statement here. And this is why the statement here has been made. That no doubt the person must remain patient with their shaykh. Now, the sixth that we mentioned as well, أن يشكر الشيخ على توقيفه على ما فيه فضيلة وعلى توبيخه على ما فيه نقيصة. And so, the person is grateful, he has gratitude for the shaykh by way of his virtue and what he's bestowing upon him from knowledge. And this is the affair, no doubt, that an individual must remain from those that are shakir and shakirun. And they're grateful. Our gratitude, no doubt, begins with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're grateful to Allah for what He's given us, or His blessings within this dunya. And likewise, we are grateful to individuals that have given us things that we can benefit from. And from the most beneficial and the most beneficial of affairs is ilm al-din. It's knowledge of this deen, knowledge of the sharia. And so with that, we are grateful. The seventh, and this is the final one we mentioned today, inshallah, is أن يدخل على شيخ في غير مجلس العام وأن لا يدخل عفوا على شيخ في غير مجلس العام إلا باستئذان. So, the person does not enter the gathering of his shaykh, the general gathering of his shaykh, except by way of seeking permission from him. So this is irrespective of whether the shaykh is by himself, the teacher is by himself, or whether those are with him, there's others with him. he should seek permission from them. Na'am. You should seek permission from him. And if he has doubts that whether the Shaykh is aware of whether he's entered the gathering, so he's entered and he sought permission, but he's not aware, he's not sure whether the Shaykh acknowledged that permission being sought, then, as mentioned here with Ibn Jama'ah, لا يزيد فوق ثلاث مرات. You shouldn't seek that permission more than 3 times. So for example now, the Shaykh is teaching. He's teaching his students. And then someone comes in seeking permission to enter the gathering. Or maybe the Shaykh's in the middle of the qira'ah, maybe he's in the middle of reading something. So he hasn't acknowledged him. So the person's not sure, has he acknowledged me or not? The student is not sure, has he acknowledged that I've entered or not? So he continues to ask, maybe two more times. If he's still not sure, then the gathering is not for him. It's not for him to enter. So it's not for him to enter just of his own will. Rather, he should seek permission 3 times. Just as you seek permission to enter someone's home 3 times. Then he's striking the door, knocking the door 3 times. Now, and the knocking of the door is one which should be light. One which is khafif. Now, and when a person does enter the gathering of his Shaykh, and it's not a general gathering, then he should remain silent. Yeah, he remains silent for speaking. Now, likewise, if he enters the gathering of the Shaykh, and the Shaykh is busy, like Shaykh is busy, he's alone but he's busy, praying, or doing dhikr, or writing, or reading, then he leaves him and does not begin to speak. Or he has, and he's short, and he restricts his speech. And so he restricts his speech and then quickly departs, and as not to bother his Shaykh. Except if his teacher, his Shaykh, gives him the signal to remain in that gathering. To remain in that gathering. And if he remains, فَلَا يَتِيلُ إِلَّا يَأْمُرَهُ بِذَلِكَ. إِلَّا يَأْمُرُهُ بِذَلِكَ. So, if he does remain with his Shaykh and he's given them permission to remain, then he does not elongate that time period of remaining with him, except if the Shaykh commands him to do so. Says, remain, stay longer. And so when he does sit with the Shaykh, his qalb should be فارغ من الشواغل وذهنه صاف لا في حال نعاس أو غضب أو جوع شديد أو عطش أو نحو ذلك. And so when he's sitting with his Shaykh, his heart should be ready to receive that which is of benefit. And his thoughts should not be clouded. So you shouldn't have his thoughts clouded through by way of fatigue, or severe hunger, or thirst, or anger. Rather, when he's sitting with the Shaykh, he's there and he wants to benefit from what the Shaykh has to say. And he's not busy by other affairs. No doubt, if he's angry about something, that's what's going to be playing upon his mind. And so he won't take the full benefit of that gathering. Or if he's hungry, again, he's not going to take the full benefit. Because what's he going to be thinking about? Food, eating. Now, likewise, thirsty. So, it's upon the person when they are in these gatherings of knowledge that they prepare themselves as well. Prepare themselves mentally and, if you can say, emotionally as well. That they're not busy by other things. They haven't just come out of an argument with an individual and then come straight into the gathering with the sheikh. Because now, what's going to be playing upon their mind is the argument. How could he have said that to me? I should have said this back, or whatever. Rather, you give the gathering its due right. And this is done when the person is in that gathering and his heart is receptive to what is going to be mentioned. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll conclude here with these 7 points. And when Allah Ta'ala facilitates, when we continue, we'll go on to mention the other points as well. Jazakumullah khairan, ikhwan. Barakallahu feekum. And I reward you as well for your patience in the delay of the beginning. Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu wa barak ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam.
These points of advice on how to deal with the sheikh upon seeking permission on entering, and other than that, is that with somebody who has easy access to the sheikh, or does the same apply even to the individual who travels far distance to see him? Even
anyone that travels far distance. It's from the adab. So, it's from the adab that a person has with the sheikh is that he deals with this person that has something of value. Because indeed he has something of value. So, if now, for example, you travel for a far distance, it doesn't change the situation in terms of this individual, this man, or in some cases a woman, has this value, this something of value for you. So you remain patient for when you are able to sit with them and attain something from them. So you may come from a long distance and you say to the sheikh, I want to sit with you. Or you give an indication that you want to enter the majlis. But it might not be the majlis for you. It may not be something which is he gives you permission to enter, for whatever reason. The person remains patient. So this is, again, as we mentioned, the person must remain patient in their seeking of knowledge. Must remain patient in that affair.
Does sabr mean anything but patience? Does it mean anything else?
No, generally it's patience and everything revolving around it. Because patience is, when we say patience, when we refer to patience, it's not just maybe the classic understanding of it. Yeah. It's not necessarily that. When you're being patient, it's you're restricting your nafs, yourself and your soul from what it may want to do. Right? So, for example, the scholars, they mention patience of 3 types. You have patience in obedience to Allah, patience when it comes to staying away from disobedience, and patience with what Allah Ta'ala has decreed to occur. So you have patience when it comes to the obedience. So for example, there's actions of worship that you may need to do, and it may be difficult. And so yourself as a person may have the feeling of not doing it. So you have to remain patient with your own self to do the action. Likewise, the opposite of leaving something that is disobedient. So you may want to do it within yourself. You want to do it. You have to remain patient. I restrict yourself from doing it to please your Lord. The third is where something occurs from what Allah Ta'ala has ordained for it to occur. So it may be something that is disliked, maybe the loss of a loved one, right? You remain patient with that. You restrict yourself, you restrict yourself from doing something that is disliked. So you don't, for example, maybe a person they might lose a loved one, and they ask Allah why, or why me, and all these things. It's something that Allah has written to occur, and there's always some wisdom within these things. So you remind yourself of these wisdom, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, "In asabathum musibatun qalu inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." And so if a calamity befalls them, so calamity, a loss of life or something like that, then they say, indeed from Allah we have come and to Him we return. This is what we say. So when it comes to these things, the patience isn't the the British definition of patience, like waiting in queues, necessarily. There's more of a wider definition for it. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
No, but no.
How does the student ask Sheikh about his ilm and where he gained it from, his qualifications?
There's two ways really. You ask directly, and he can tell you. But at times as well, sometimes a sheikh may not want to tell you by way of tawadu. You know, he has that humility. He's humble. He doesn't want to say, "Well, I studied here and I studied with it." So, likewise, you can go to others that are known to be trustworthy to ask about them. Because remember, especially the first point, that you go through a whole process before you sit with someone. So you go through a process of looking at who you're sitting with, praying istikhara, all of these things before you even sit with that sheikh. So in that scenario, you can ask others about them as well and define who you should sit with. And Ahlul Ilm, they mention that there's two ways to know about someone's deen, or whether they are qualified and befitting for knowledge, or generally for praise. There's two things that are known. There's one which is referred to as istifada. And istifada is where it's generally known amongst the people of knowledge that so-and-so is a person of knowledge. So it's generally known. It's so widespread amongst the people of knowledge, this person is a person of knowledge, that you suffice with that almost. Right? And this is the highest of the two. So for example, we say Sheikh Fawzan. The people of knowledge know that Sheikh Salih Fawzan is a Sheikh Alim al-Ulama. It's the father of that affair. And it's become widespread. Secondly, we have a tansis, what is known as tansis, where you have, for example, now a statement that has been made. So a statement of a person of knowledge that has recognition that this is a person of knowledge as well. Now, and no doubt, a person that has knowledge, they recognize knowledge and its people. And so these are the two ways as well. So if you have one of these two ways that can aid, then you know this is the person you can take knowledge from. No.
How should one seek permission of entering the gathering or the lesson without disrupting the lesson?
So the best way to seek permission, Allah knows best, and it depends on the nature of the gathering. But generally it's going to be where the students are quiet, so you're not going to want to speak out. But if you give some sort of signal, and try to catch the eye of the teacher, and you give that signal, and then you after that, hopefully he sees it, and then you can get the permission, inshallah. And this is the best way, rather than speaking out and then, like you said, just disrupting that gathering.
If you try 3 times,
and it's not clear that he's giving you permission, then you can leave.
You will just walk.
Yeah. No.
The salam on entering gathering is the Sheikh speaking.
No.
Is that something that's given and responded to?
You can give the salam, but at times as well, it's not upon you to give the salam in this scenario. And some of the scholars, they mention this as well. I give the salam to the gathering because it may bring about the harm of the disruption of the gathering. Then the person just really enters the gathering and suffices with that, inshallah.
And if he does give the salam, does it become wajib for the?
No, you have to respond to the salam. Hence why it can be a disruption. No. Jazakumullah khair.
You mentioned wara. Can you give a summarized explanation of it?
Wara. So there's two affairs. You have wara and you have zuhud. You have wara and you have zuhud. As we know, you have the ahkam, the rulings are 5. The ahkam taklifiyya, the rulings in relation to what we're responsible for. We have that which is wajib. Wajib referring to, does anyone know?
Obligation.
Obligation, but what's the definition?
Leaving off the sinful.
Now, so wajib, if you do it, you are rewarded. If you leave it, then you're sinful. Now, that's an obligation. The second is mustahab, that which is recommended. The definition of that will be what?
You're not sinful.
Highly encouraged.
You're rewarded if you do it.
Jade. So if you leave it off, you're not sinful. However, if you do it, you're rewarded. Naam, that's mustahab. The second is mubah. The third is mubah. And that's something which is permissible to do. If you do it, naam, you're not rewarded. And if you leave it, you're not sinful. Naam. So it's just permissible to do. For example, eating and drinking. It's something which is just permissible. The fourth is that which is makruh, disliked. Because disliked to do. So if you do it, you're not sinful. If you do it, you're not sinful. However, if you leave it off, you're rewarded. Is that clear? The fifth is what is haram. Naam, haram. Impermissible. Meaning that if you do it, you are sinful, and if you leave it, you're rewarded. Tayyib. Going back to the main question now. When you have wara and you have zuhud. Zuhud is a high level of wara. Zuhud is abstinence and leaving off that which is mubah. The third one we mentioned. So leaving off that which is just permissible to do. Naam. Whilst wara is leaving off that which is doubtful. So you don't know whether it's haram or not. Naam. And some of the scholars they mentioned mentioned the difference between the two as the following. Leaving off that which is zuhud is leaving off that which does not benefit nor harm you in the akhirah. Naam. And so zuhud is to leave off something. It doesn't benefit you nor does it harm you in the hereafter. It doesn't benefit you nor does it harm you. Whilst wara is leaving off something that may be harmful for you in the akhirah. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So wara is to leave off something that may be harmful for you in the akhirah. Why may it be harmful? May it be harmful for you in the akhirah? Because it may be haram. It's doubtful. You don't know if it's haram or not. So because you don't know, you leave it off. So you leave off this affair. Because it may be harmful for you in the akhirah. Zuhud is something you leave off something that does not benefit you nor harm you in the akhirah. So then why is this a higher level then?
Because it's completely optional.
It's completely optional.
It's
You
your
wouldn't be-
choice.
You wouldn't be blamed for doing it.
You wouldn't be blamed for doing it. So then what? So then why is it higher then?
Because
Do you understand the question?
No.
There's no benefit.
There's no benefit. Nah, the one that is zahid, he's only focused on what will benefit him. Right? He's only focused on what will benefit him. The one that has the wara, he wants to just leave off something because it might be harmful for him. Right? The one that has zuhud, he wants to leave off anything, not only that may be harmful for him, but if it does not benefit him, he wants to leave it as well. And he's shughul and he only wants to busy himself with the affairs that will benefit him in the akhirah. Naam, and hence why this is the higher of the two. Naam, barakallahu fikum.
Can you give us some examples of them?
Example of zuhud. Tayyib. When we discuss zuhud as well, it doesn't necessarily mean where a person, there's sometimes a misunderstanding where a person has to look poor, has to look broke. Naam, to be a zahid. You have to have holes in your clothes and you have to drive the worst car and no, there's no zuhud. It's where a person, he abstains from the affairs of the dunya, and if he was to have it or he doesn't have it, it does not affect his relationship with Allah. Now, so he has something from the dunya, and his relationship with Allah is a particular way. If he doesn't have it, his relationship with Allah is the same way. He's not attached to the affair of the dunya. Now, he only uses the affairs of the dunya for its benefit. So example of that, let's say, where a person, they buy a car, and they buy the car which will fulfill their needs. Now they buy the car that will fulfill their needs, and they're not attached to the car. They're not attached to whatever happens to the car. They just know that this car will get me from A to B. This car will be a means of me taking my family from A to B, maybe even C, if he wants to. But this affair of the car is not attached to him. He's not going to go crazy if the car breaks down. Naam. And he may even buy the best car that's possible for him to buy. But it's something that he sees because it fulfills his needs. But he doesn't go overboard and buy and spend money when he doesn't need to spend, where it doesn't need to be spent. That's an example of the one that has zuhud. Or where a person eats to the extent where he eats that which is sufficient for him. He eats for the benefit of what eating is for, nourishment. He eats so he can have energy. Now, or even to the extent where he looks at this food as a means of his ibadah, that it can strengthen him so that he can worship Allah. But he does not become the individual where I need to eat in this restaurant, I need to see what this one tastes like, that food tastes like. That's not his relationship with food. His relationship with food is that it's for food. Naam, it's fuel. It's nourishment, that's it. And he's not an individual that has to have this food and that food and we need to go to this restaurant today because that one we went to yesterday. No. And this is the fair zuhud, for example. So he takes that from that which he needs. And anything that, for example, eating, as we mentioned, is mubah. If you want to go to a nice restaurant, for example, mubah. It's something which is permissible, you can do. But it's not going to benefit nor harm you in the akhirah. So the individual leaves it off. Salam. He leaves it off. And that's the example. No, that's the example. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
So some of the people, they say that people who practice zuhud, those who they don't marry women, they don't intermingle with many other people, and they're abstinent, they're in constant worship, and they don't eat the finer things in life, or dress in the finer ways.
No, this is like I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily zuhud. That you abstain from having nice things. You may have things that, and remember, nice things, for the most part, there's a middle ground, where nice things is all relative. So for example, if you're in one country, one thing that may be regarded as very nice there, if you come here to the UK, it's not seen as anything, for example. So it's not about what you have from the dunya, necessarily, specific things that you have from the dunya. It's your relationship with those things. So if your relationship with those things is that you're attached to it, and if you lose it, it's like a loss, you feel the loss. Then you know, no doubt this person's not practicing zuhud. But if the person now, he doesn't have attachment to it, he's using it to fulfill his needs of the dunya. Now, then, this is the one that's zahid. For example, as mentioned, the relationship we should have with the dunya is like the relationship that you have with the bathroom, the toilet. You go in there, fulfill your needs, and you leave. Now, you don't do anything more in the toilet. Now, you go there, fulfill your needs, what you need to do, and you leave. The dunya hakala. The dunya likewise the same. You're really living within the dunya, but you take from the dunya whatever you need within the dunya and leave it at that. And that is zuhud. So whatever you need, whatever you may need for yourself, may be extravagant for another person. So it's all relative. But the important point is that the person's heart is not attached to these things. That the person isn't attached to these things of the dunya. No.
What's your advice on detaching yourself from things in the dunya?
In terms of detaching yourself, it's very important to, first and foremost, continuously remind yourself of why we are here. We are here as worshippers of Allah. We are here as people of Tawheed. We are here to give Allah His due right in terms of ibadah. That's why we're here. We're not here for anything more than that, or anything outside of that. So, you remind yourself of Allah, you remind yourself of the duties that we have with Allah. That's one thing. Another thing is that you read some of the narrations and some of the text about the dunya itself, right? And where Allah Ta'ala might mention that this dunya is the abode or the mata' al-ghurur. You need the abode and a place for just deception. Or it's la'ab wa lahu. It's for a place of mere play and amusement. Right? So it's not a place where things are serious. Things get serious in the akhirah. In the hereafter. Why? Because the akhirah is eternal. It's ongoing. It's forever. So you put everything in its context. You put everything in its context, and you read the text that put it in its context as well. And you understand the value of the dunya. For example, the narration where the Prophet ﷺ was walking with his companions, and they saw a dead carcass, like a dead lamb, on the path. And he said to his companions, he asked his companions, do any of you want to take from this lamb? All of them, of course, said no. There's a dead carcass. He said ﷺ that this, now the dunya, is worth even less to Allah, and regardless, there's less to Allah than what you regard this carcass to be. So there's a narration such as these, to understand the value of it. Because remember, we live in a society where value is given to everything around us. You know, you need, if you want to be a person of value, you need the best job. You want to be a person of value, you need the most amount of money. You want to be the person of value, you must drive this car. No, this is something that we see. Hence why people get paid millions of pounds, or marketers get paid millions of pounds to sell people the dunya, essentially. Right? So advertising companies, they get paid millions of pounds. We want to sell people a car, or the dream. We're going to give you the image that if you buy this car, everything else in your life is going to fall into place, for example. People get paid millions just to give that image, right? So when so much value is placed upon the dunya, people invest everything into it without giving their investment for the akhirah, the hereafter. And this is what Allah Ta'ala refers to the greatest form of profit. Where the person, when you really want to profit, you profit in the hereafter, where you perform all the righteous actions and then you see the result of that righteousness in the hereafter. So just as, and Allah Ta'ala gives that example, that comparison, there's something that we can relate to. Just as we, for example, now as individuals, we have money and we invest it in something and we leave it for like 10 years or whatever, how many years, and we come back and it's grown, right? So we invested £10 maybe, and then it's grown and now it's worth 10 million, for example, right? You might have invested. That's a very good investment, by the way. You invested 10 and then 10 million.
Compound interest.
But if now you look at it in terms of the akhirah, you've invested your actions. And then after that, in the hereafter, you will see the result of those actions. And that is what you find the text encourage us upon. And it's about to remind yourself of these things. That just as you may not see the results of it now, the investment is there in the hereafter. And the reality is that the individual will see some results of righteous actions now by way of having that sakina, that tranquility within their own soul and within their own heart of the actions that they're performing. And, you know, the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the things that he made dua against, how he supplicated for it not to occur, was the nafs, the soul and yourself that is never satisfied. Right? And if you look at the dunya, the one that chases dunya, you will never be satisfied. Because you're always chasing. And you haven't fulfilled the primary goal of why you're here. Is not to take as much from the dunya, but it's to give Allah His rights and worship Allah. So because you haven't fulfilled that, you're never going to be satisfied. But there's always going to be a hole there. There's always going to be something missing. And so these are the things that we should always remind ourselves of, inshallah. No. Barakallah feek. جزاكم الله خيرا إخوان. حياكم الله. وصلى الله وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.